Welcome to the Bible Study Together Daily Dive into Titus. I'm Peter Schrock, the founder of Bible Study Together and a life and marriage coach at togethertransform.com. We are in week 1 of our study, and this is the 4th day. In this video, we'll be going over the daily Bible questions and their answers. So let's get started. What other books of the Bible are similar to Titus? Describe some similarities and differences. Paul wrote several books in the Bible, but they're technically all letters. Letters to churches and letters to individual people. So, in some ways, all of Paul's letters are similar in some ways, but they also have those differences in that some were written to different groups and such. And particularly, some of the letters that were written to individuals were written to people who were leading the church. When we call these the pastoral epistles. Now, epistles are just a word for letter. So if you ever heard somebody say epistle, it just means letter. So this is one of there's particularly 3 pastoral epistles, and they're 1 Timothy, 2 Timothy, and Titus. And so these 3 make up what we know of these, and they're the first 2, the ones to Timothy, are written to, obviously, Timothy, and the other ones are written to Titus. But what I've noticed is, in terms of even going a little bit deeper in terms of their similarities, is when I look at Titus in chapter 1, some of the things that he's speaking to Titus are very similar to the things he's speaking to Timothy in chapter 1 of 1 Timothy. So let's take a quick peek at this. So I'm in Titus chapter 1. I'm going to look at here in verse 10 through 14. It says, "For there are many who are insubordinate, empty talkers and deceivers, especially those of the circumcision party. They must be silenced, since they are upsetting whole families by teaching for shameful gain what they ought not to teach. One of the Cretans, a prophet of their own, said, 'Cretans are always liars, evil beasts, lazy gluttons.' This testimony is true. Therefore rebuke them sharply, that they may be sound in the faith, not devoting themselves to Jewish myths and the commands of people who turn away from the truth." So some of these things that are standing out here are particularly, he's warning them about people who are trying to derail the church. They're trying to get people off the path that God has called them to and what Paul has taught them and brought them up in. So the other spot here that I was talking about is right here in 1 Timothy. In 1 Timothy chapter 1, verse 3, it says, "As I urged you when I was going to Macedonia, remain at Ephesus so that you may charge certain persons not to teach any different doctrine, nor devote themselves to myths and endless genealogies, which promote speculation rather than the stewardship from God that is by faith. The aim of our charge is love, that issues from a pure heart and a good conscience and a sincere faith." I'll keep going. "Certain persons, by swerving from these, have wandered into vain discussions, desiring to be teachers of the law without understanding what they are saying or the things to which they make confident assertions." So this is what stands out here is that, Paul is really just trying to instruct these leaders to come in and help guide the church back away from these people who are derailing it. And because the bottom line of what God is calling people to do is to have a life that is fruitful, that emanates and looks like who God is. So really the point here is that when these other teachers come in, they're getting them derailed into, things like genealogies and speculations and myths and different things like that. While on the other hand, we're really called to walk in faith and good works and do and obey God. So really the bottom line is that the teaching that should come from our leaders is something that's going to help us grow and continue to obey God and follow him and love him and experience him in all of his power and goodness. And it should not be resulting in confusion and sin. What in Paul's message is most relevant to you? Well, everyone here is going to have a different answer to this. But for me personally, something that's kind of been standing out and I've been pondering on is actually right at the end of Titus. It's in chapter 3. So let's go there real quick. In Titus 3, I'm going to be reading from chapter 3 and verse 14. We see, "And let our people learn to devote themselves to good works so as to help cases of urgent need, not be unfruitful." So this passage here stood out to me particularly because he's basically encouraging them to devote themselves to doing good things. I think a lot of times I can get stuck studying and diving deeper into different things, but God's not calling us simply to study and learn, but to actually go out and do good things. So yeah, that's one particular thing that really stands out to me. And he says that in the sense too of like to make sure that we're one of the ways we can know that we're doing good things is that we're meeting the needs of others, particularly. And so, if we're meeting the needs of other people, it makes sure, it allows us to make sure that we're doing something productive, something that has value, something that is fruitful. And so effectively, when I look at this and try to see, what's standing out to me and what's most relevant to me is in this season of life, like I really see that God is calling me to be focused on doing the things that are going to build other people up, meet people's needs, and as a result, be fruitful and productive. So that concludes today's study questions and stuff. So we will see you tomorrow.